Hello, my name is Dr. Sivan Regev, and today I will present the presentation with both eyes open, translational research using eye tracker together with performance-based evaluation of instrumental activities of daily living amongst the people living with severe mental illness and match control group. This study is part of my PhD dissertation, and my supervisors are Professor Naomi Josman from the Occupational Therapy Department and Dr. Avi Mendelssohn from the Neurobiology Department, both from the University of Haifa. The study was supported by the National Insurance Institute of Israel, and here you can see me standing in the supermarket where we conducted the research in the beginning of COVID-19. What made us stop collecting data because the study was in a real-world environment, and we couldn't continue performing it as we did before. But before we deepen in the study itself, I want to start with the theory. So, as you see in the title, it starts with translational research, and translational research acts in two ways. It translates research within the theoretical area and from theory into practice, as Wolf state. This study question was, what is the behavior and executive function of people with severe mental illnesses during a real-life task performance? In order to answer this question, we start with step 1, systematic review. So you can see this article was published in Schizophrenia Research Cognition, and we asked the question of what evaluations are out there for people with severe mental illness in terms of executive function and everyday life. We took a broader concept and not just IADL because we wanted to see in other professions too. So we found 104 articles discussing this question, and it was all around the world. Here I marked Israel and also in your area, and if you look in the article, you see that we made big tables of assessments for executive function and assessments for IADL, and we found also assessment that examine both. Most of them were performance-based assessments in which you can measure a task performance, and during task performance see how people behave and learn from about their executive functions. So step 2 of this article, of this study, was the activity analysis of the assessment test of grocery shopping skills. We took this task, which was to select 10 items in an unknown supermarket and select them for their lowest price. So you see this diagram, it shows the steps within it. First, the start, when the subject stands with the list and can plan and scan the area before he starts performing. Then item detection, where the subject walk around and look for the 10 items in the supermarket, using the list, using asking for help, using the signs, categorize the items, maybe the two things next to each other. So this is part 2. Part 3 is the item selection itself. We call this event in order to make it organized for us. And every event has the steps of scanning the shelf, finding the size that was in the list, find the prices and then compare them, and in the end select the item and take it and check that it was the right thing from the list. The last part was check and end, in which the subject check that he has all 10 items and walk to the end of the store and finish the task. Here you can see one of the subject, and she's wearing the eye tracker. So after analyzing the task, we also add, for this specific study, the eye tracker. That was step 3, which helped us take the move from the eye of the researcher, from the observation we do on this specific task, to the eye of the subject. And I want to show you. Let's see if it works. Okay, it doesn't work. Here you can see the list, and you can see these dots are the fixation on the list, and this is the path where this specific subject scanned the list in the beginning of performing the task in part 1. Step 4 was defining the outcome. So we do have 2 parts of outcomes: the TOGS outcomes and the eye tracker outcomes. The TOGS gives us the efficiency of performing the task, which is measured by the total time in seconds, and the redundancy. You can see here a map where we walked with the subject and we marked his path. And if someone walk several times in an aisle, we mark the redundancy. And so this is the redundancy, and the total time is for the efficiency. And the other outcome of the TOGS is the accuracy, which is measured by the correct item, correct size, and correct price of each item, and then combined together to 30 points. The eye tracker has many details and many data we could take from it. What we did, we made a 16 area of interest on a shelf in order to measure the fixation amount and fixation duration. So because we wanted to be as specific as we can, because together with the fixation, we have the light, we have the angle in which the person reached the shelf, the shelf. Yes. So we wanted to be as much specific as we can. So, okay, soon when I'll show you the data, I'll explain what we did with it. The step 5 was to analyze the results. So from the part of the TOGS, the task itself, we saw that the SMI group, let's start with the control group. Control group act as was accepted. The redundancy and the time were correlated, which make the efficiency stronger, and that what we expected, that they will correlate, and also the redundancy and the time in which they looked for the items, it's expected to be matched. But in the SMI group, we see other things. We see that the detection, the walk around and look for item, match negative to accuracy, and that TOGS time for the selection matched with the fixation amount. What mean that when people stand in front of the shelf, people with severe mental illness stand in front of the shelf, they produce a lot of fixations. Soon we'll combine it all together. And the eye tracker results, we see that the result of all item selection, we chose 4 item selections, events, as I called them before. There were consistency among all the subject, because sometimes we had to change the ingredients because of what there is in the supermarket, and sometimes it wasn't correct. But the 4 items that were consistency in all with all the subject was the spaghetti, the paprika bags, the soap, and the can of corn. So for all these event item selections task, there was a greater percentage of fixations by the SMI group when scanning written information relevant to decision making. What means that, okay, so now I'll move to the conclusions. So I'll say it and then I'll move to the slide. What means that, as we saw here, when people stand in front of the shelf, they made the whole work, while people from the control group gather the information during working in the supermarket. They were working all the time, and it was more efficient. Now I'll move to the conclusion that I said now. So the step 6 is conclusion and summary, that we saw that the selection process was found to be significantly more accurate and efficient for the control group than for the SMI group. I haven't shown the data, but that what we found, and that was expected by former articles. And we saw that performance efficiency was found to be more affected by the planning and gathering of information during the entire process, rather than the direct point in the process at which it was expected. What means that a better strategy would be to make the information gathering in the whole process and not just in the point you need it. And it changed a bit my assumption about practicing and strategy use with patients, that maybe we should broaden it and use strategies even where we don't expect them to be needed. I moved to the research limitation, and I talked about it in the beginning, that intervening variables out of the lab are wide, and they were wider even more during my research because of the times we facing now. But it wasn't only COVID. The next step is COVID-19, but it was also the supermarket and the things that changed. And I expected to have 10 items that I can analyze, but in the end we chose only 4 because things are dynamic and changing in a real world environment. And also because of that, we had a small sample size of SMI group. People wasn't willing to come and do this task outside in the supermarket. It was difficult to them. So we had a small sample size for the SMI group. That way, for future research, I will suggest to choose maybe tasks that are relevant and examine the things we examined, but in an area which is more controlled for the subject, maybe something inside in the work or in other places that he or she knows. That would help to gather a larger sample size. And also, I suggest that planning should be addressed as a specific executive functioning component. We saw here that it was very important, and it was very interesting to see. And I do suggest that it would be it would have more focus in future studies. Thank you for listening. I'm inviting you to look for more publications and ask me questions now about this study. Thank you.